There are a couple of recruits that Washington cannot miss in 2025.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's the site editor with Inside the Huskies at Athlon Sports, and I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, Lars, speaking of game on, Washington, they really need to make sure that their recruiting game is on point in the 2025 class. And there are a couple guys that you and I were talking about that, like we said in the opener a second ago, they cannot miss out on. Where Jedd Fisch has said this needs to be the best class in school history. He set some very, very lofty goals. And so you and I have each picked out a couple of guys that we think need to join the class of 2025 that Washington's coaching staff needs to close on. So we've got two each. So I'm going to let you go first. Who's your first one?
So we'll start with the one that was talked about yesterday on Twitter. Zaydrius Rainey-Sale out of Bethel High School, four-star linebacker. I believe the top player in the state, if not one of the top players.
No, you're correct.
In the state.
Top player in the state. Yeah.
Pretty sure he's top player in the state. All-around linebacker, has all the size, has all the tools. And the one thing that makes him such an important keep for Jedd Fisch and the staff is he had high interest in Washington under Kalen DeBoer. Now there's two different staffs and two different rhyme or reasons for it, but he still maintains interest in Washington. I talked to him at the Under Armour event a couple of weeks ago. He's coming up for an official visit, I believe, in May or June. I forgot which off the top of my head. I can't remember which date it is.
Early June.
But that exactly. And he actually was thinking about coming up to the spring game for an unofficial visit. I cannot confirm or deny that he made that visit. I didn't see him on the island. I don't know if you did as well. But seven assistant coaches showed up to Bethel, including Steve Belichick, Jason Kafusi, Scott Graham, John Richardson, Robert Bala, basically the entire defensive staff, and Jordan Powpow and a couple other coaches were there, which shows we got three other coaches doing other recruiting. We got all of us here to see you. That shows how high Washington really values Zaydrius Rainey-Sale. And likewise, Zaydrius knows what he has at Washington. He has a really good relationship with Jedd Fisch. The way he described his relationship to me, which will be up on a story for Athlon Sports, possibly by the time people watch this or listen to this podcast, where you can just tell he vibes with Jedd Fisch. And it's not that he doesn't vibe with Robert Bala, but you can just tell he's like, you know what? That's a funny guy, right? Let me go play for that guy. And if I can stay around my parents, stay around my friends, there's no reason to not stay home with Washington, especially when you can play for Steve Belichick and things like that. So Zaydrius Rainey-Sale would be my first one where when you look at the in-state kids, you're not going to take a ton of them this year just because they need to kind of cast a wider net. But if you're going to take one or two, that one has to be Zaydrius Rainey-Sale.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with the opportunity that he'd have to play next season. That's one thing I remember from watching his film is this is such a flexible guy who can play anywhere along the front seven, and you can find a way to utilize him effectively. That's one of my favorite things about him. My first one is somebody who maybe won't have an opportunity to play right away, mainly due to just the adjustment needed at the position. And that's Douglas Utu, the four-star offensive lineman from Bishop Gorman High School in Nevada. And I really, really love his film. I love his athleticism. I love his talent. I love everything about him. And it's a really good litmus test for Brennan Carroll, where I think that he's one person especially who has a really good track record when it comes to developing players. We saw where Jordan Morgan went in the NFL draft a couple weeks ago, going 25th overall to the Green Bay Packers, who's a really nice prospect that he developed down at Arizona. We're going to see Jonas Abayena probably go in the first round in the 2025 draft. So there are a couple guys that Brennan Carroll can really point to and say, hey, I was able to develop these guys. Why can't I do that with you? And Douglas Utu is the number one example of that, where I think that with everything that he brings to the field on film, that he is, I don't want to say a can't miss prospect, because especially with high school recruiting, that's always something that, there are always factors that get in the way, things happen. But Utu is one of those really, really promising, and that's why he's a top 100 recruit in the country. That's why he's a top 5 player at his position, where you can look at him and say, all right, yeah, this is somebody who Washington really, really needs to get. They've done a really good job developing a strong relationship with him. Washington is the only place that he's even set up an official visit with so far, even though he's got 24, 25 offers. That's certainly not going to stay that way, but getting him on campus early is a very, very good sign. And that's one of the reasons I want to make sure that we talk about him. But Lars, who's your second guy?
And just real quick on that, when you stand next to Vita Vea and make him look average, you are a massive hoss. So that's also a reason to get Douglas Utu in the vote. I like that pick. I like that note a lot. I'm going to stick on your side of the ball and go to offense after Zaydrius Rainey-Sale. Andrew Marsh, the wide receiver out of Jordan High School in Katy, Texas. That one, to me, you just look at, you have Raiden Vinesbred in the boat already. So you already have one where you're taking, taking three receivers in this class.
Sure.
If you're going to wait on that final guy, it could be Andrew Marsh, but I don't think you need to wait, because Andrew Marsh and Kevin Cummings really seems like a guy who can go into the state of Texas, compete with some of these other schools for his services. They're already getting him up on campus, I believe, at the end of May, right?
Big weekend.
Yeah, May 31st. And when you're getting that type of talent, it's like bringing in a Des Bryant and bringing in a Darrell Riss when they're in high school in the same weekend, where you're looking at, like, I say that because, Philip Bell and Dijon Lee are also coming up for that weekend. So when you get all of these top talents around each other, they start looking around like, I'm having a good time. You having a good time? You having a good time? Why don't you just stay here and play here? Like, that's exactly what it seems like Jedd Fisch is doing with some of these big weekends, where he's not making it all in one boat like in June, like Kalen DeBoer did. He's spreading it out, where he's getting some of these guys in early and then getting a bunch of them all in together. Because you look at Andrew Marsh, 15 total touchdowns, 26 in the last 2 years in Texas. That is insane. That is criminal. That is criminal numbers in a good way. And so when you think about who the quarterback could be for the next couple of years after Will Rogers graduates, and you look at Damon Williams' downfield game, Andrew Marsh fits that perfectly. There's no ball that he could not catch from Damon Williams, and Damon doesn't have a ball that he couldn't get to Andrew Marsh. And so I think when you start to build out this offense 2-3 years down the line, you can see those guys having double-digit touchdown seasons year in and year out for a couple of years before they go on to the NFL.
Absolutely. And that's something where one guy you didn't mention there that's also coming up that same weekend is wide receiver Chris Lawson, where if they don't, it looks like they're trying to take two of those three guys. And, if you want to count Donovan Olakbooty, who took his official visit for the spring game, two of those four guys to pair with Raiden Vinesbred would be a really, really fantastic wide receivers class. But the last guy I want to mention is somebody you touched on briefly there a second ago, and that's Dijon Lee. And somebody who we on this podcast have been talking about for a very, very long time. He's been very high on Washington for a while, and he will be taking his official visit during that big weekend at the end of June. So he's somebody that I'm keeping a really close eye on, because there just are not a lot of players in the country like him. 6'4", 190 pounds, so fluid, so athletic. And he's somebody where I remember talking to Thaddeus Dixon a couple of weeks ago about Washington's defense and some things they like to run. They like to run press man because they know they have help over the top. He's somebody who fits something that Bill Belichick's defense loved to do in New England for such a long time, where you would bracket somebody on one side of the field, usually the top receiver, and then leave your top corner isolated on the other side against the number 2 receiver, which is, an interesting strategy, but I understand the logic there. And that's something that Dijon Lee would do so well. If, you're going up against whoever it might be, and you want to say, all right, we're going to double team this receiver over here, but we need somebody who we can trust to lock somebody down the other side of the field. That's the kind of player that Dijon Lee can be. And in 2026, I want to say, because I think he can start for a lot of teams in 2025, but then take that leap towards stardom in 2026. And I think that he's somebody who you can't miss out on and would be probably just the crown jewel of your class as a whole. And Lars, let's stick on the recruiting trail here, but let's jump over to basketball for a minute. Right after a message from our good friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for, and with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So, Lars, somebody very important is on campus right now for Coach Danny Sprinkle. And that's Utah State forward, his best player, the Mountain West Player of the Year, Great Osobor. Where you and I had talked a little bit about Elijah Saunders, especially over on our respective websites. We wrote about what that might mean to Danny Sprinkle's front court and how he'd be a fun depth piece. But no matter what, it has always felt like Great Osobor is the guy that can not only tie, the front court together, especially playing alongside Frank Kepnong, but he could tie this whole team together and really bring it to another level. So at this moment, do you believe that the Huskies are the favorite to secure his services?
Yeah, I believe they were the favorite when he wrapped up his Kentucky visit and said thanks but no thanks. When you visit Kentucky and then at the end of your visit conclude, not only do I not commit, I'm not coming here. Pretty much told you where he's going. Now, again, I don't want to speak for Great Osobor because, to be fair, he still does have to get the visit done. He still has 48 hours on campus. But it just seemed like the way that he set up his visits, where Washington was going to get the last visit, and now they are getting his last visit. Every other school before him was basically trying to say, here's a reason to not follow the coach that you followed for the last two schools, because not only did he follow him at Utah State, he got him at Montana State. So Danny Sprinkle was the coach with Andy Hill, with Danny Slocum, DeMarlo Slocum, where they saw him, developed him, and really at this point in his career, when you're going to find a third school before you go to the NBA next season, why not just stick with the coach you've already known for long enough? If you're not going to, it means you're going to Kentucky. It means you're going to, I don't think he's visiting Arkansas, but, following a coach like John Calipari, right? So if you're not going to go that route, there's only two routes: go to the NBA or go to follow Danny Sprinkle at Washington. And I'm glad you mentioned tying the roster together. That's really what he does. Where you look at, he's gotten Zoom Diallo, he's gotten Jace Butler, he's gotten a couple other guards in Mickey Mason,
DJ Davis, and Makai Mason. Yeah.
So you have the guard. You probably want one more true guard in that combination, in that rotation. Now, what level? Who knows? But you probably want one more guard. But the rest is going to be in the front court, and they don't truly have. When you look at the roster, getting Frank Kepnong back, massive. I mean, Washington's season basically was a ride or die under Frank for the last two seasons, and we saw what happened after he went out with an injury. So being back at the 5 is massive. But having that guy at the 4 or 3, depending on how you want to structure the roster, that's the guy that ties everything. And I know I agree, but I'm just saying in terms of in terms of the role he plays as a shooter, distributor, rebounder, all around game, he impacts the game in so many different ways. He is truly that guy that would tie everything together, would allow Zoom Diallo to have more shooting success by drawing away double teams. Or if Zoom draws double teams and kick it over to Greg Osobor and still throws in a dunker or 3. So it doesn't matter which way you go about it. Great Osobor would be the great piece for Washington to wrap this whole thing up, because Danny Sprinkle knows the task ahead of him. He knows it's going to be a bit of a work up to get to where he needs to be in that 26-plus win column. But it starts with Great Osobor, and right away, that's probably 10 wins right there, just in terms of when you combine the other key pieces around him. There's no reason why Great Osobor wouldn't be a perfect fit at Washington.
So I absolutely agree with you and see where you're coming from. And I want to add on where I think that if he does commit to Washington, that this could be the deepest front court we've seen from this school in a long time. Where I really loved, watching the Jaden McDaniels, Isaiah Stewart combination a whole bunch of years ago. But it wasn't quite this deep, where, one guy you didn't mention, and to no fault of you, is Oregon State center KC Beckway, where I kind of like just having that backup depth, where I like watching him. I think he's a fun piece to have. And then, of course, Wilhelm Breidenbach was really, really solid in spots last season. Where great is that one guy that, can take it to the next level, where I really like what Zoom can do as a true point guard in the backcourt. You got somebody like DJ Davis, who's a really nice shooter. And there's a whole lot here that it feels like a more complete team than Mike Hopkins has assembled in recent years. It felt like everything was going to come together with this last group, with Paul Mulcahy coming in, everything that he was going to be able to do, Moses Wood as the shooter, Severe Wheeler as just the true point man. And it just never did. And we know why. We don't need to get into all the nitty-gritty details of why in terms of what Mike Hobson's coaching style was and how it all worked out. But with what Danny Sprinkle has shown that he's been able to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball over the last couple of years, this really is the missing piece. This is the one guy that you need to make sure that you reel in. And it has always been about that. Where the more you watch, where somebody like Davion Smith, the Utah transfer who has gone elsewhere, he was the one guy that I was watching was, oh yeah, this would be a really nice get. Getting Mekhi Mason, getting DJ Davis, Jace Butler. Those were all, and even, Zoom Diallo, where we know how big of a piece he was, where getting all those guys was really, really important. But the one thing that was always going to tie this together was a true huge impact guy. It could have been somebody else in the backcourt, or, it's somebody like Great Osobor. And with the deep ties that he has to Danny Sprinkle's staff and everything, as you mentioned, Lars, this was always just kind of that number one guy. And I agree. It feels like he has to be the favorite, and he really could take this team to another level.
Exactly. And the one thing that you highlighted was under Mike Hopkins, and we're not going to bash this into oblivion, but it was one guy that was the shooter. When you look at the roster that Danny Sprinkle has cultivated already, there's multiple guys who have decent shooting numbers, right? Where you look at probably Zoom and Jace and DJ Davis are the main shooters, but there's a bunch of guys that can shoot on this team. Wilhelm can shoot. And so that's the important thing for me, where when you're building a roster, especially under Sprinkle, you want to not just have one option do this and one option. This is your rebounding guy. This is your distributing guy. This is your this guy. There's a bunch of like 4 or 5 guys that can do about 2 or 3 different things. And to me, that's what's going to make Danny Sprinkle succeed early at Washington, is not pigeonholing himself and saying, okay, these are our 2 distributors, and then if one of them goes down, we're screwed. It's a little different in a situation where you can kind of move 3 or 4 different guys around. Wilhelm can play the 4 or the 5. Osobor can play the 4, potentially the 3, depending on how you want to match up against certain teams. More likely than not, he's a 4. But having that versatility is really what's going to separate Washington moving into the Big Ten, because you're facing a different level of competition. The Pac-12, we know what it is. It's a shooting conference. It's not necessarily as deep as sometimes the Big Ten can be in other conferences, certainly. So when you're moving to the Big Ten next season for Washington, you need to be able to handle a couple of different punches. And this is why you get a sophomore guard transfer, a grad transfer, a guard transfer, a couple of freshmen, where you're staggering the progression. You can build up your roster. So by year 2 and 3, you won back-to-back, you made back-to-back tournament appearances, or you made back-to-back postseason appearances with multiple 20-win seasons. You're not saying, hey, we're getting there. We'll be probably there in 2 or 3 years. This is college basketball. It's college basketball in 2024. You got to get there within 18 months. And Danny Sprinkle is doing just that. So if they can get Great Osobor, that window probably drops down 6 months, I would say, because at that point, you're coming in to make an impact in 2024, 25. This isn't an addition that, he's going to be good this year, but wash him out really next year. This is Great Osobor for this year. So that's one thing that also really stands out to me, because, again, Washington has the resources to compete in this de facto NIL era of college athletics, where that does come into play for a lot of these schools. You don't want to spend all that money to bring Danny Sprinkle in, pay the buyout just to say, yeah, but now that we brought you in, coach, we can't really build a good roster around you, so you can't bring your former player because he cost too much. That's not the issue. It's just, can you get the right pieces around him and make it not just about Great Osobor? And that's how Danny Sprinkle successfully built this roster, by getting all the pieces around him, so that when Great Osobor comes in this week in May, he'd say, oh, wow, you guys actually have gotten a decent amount of additions. You're not just banking on me to carry the entire load, which is a good sign for player.
So I agree with you there. And one thing we just haven't mentioned on the show, and this is just the perfect time to do it, is that Danny Sprinkle has finalized his coaching staff. One guy that, where you talked about Andy Hill and Mario Slocum and just some of the other guys that are coming in. One guy you didn't mention is Tony Bland, where Tony Bland, the former USC assistant, who is truly a fantastic coach. Obviously, we know he got caught up in the FBI scandal a bunch of years ago with leading players toward financial advisors and taking bribes, but getting him back into the ranks of college basketball is such a big win for Danny Sprinkle, where this is the first year that he's eligible to do that. And I feel that says a lot about Danny Sprinkle, that he probably would have been one of the hottest coaches on the market. And getting him to join the staff, he's a really good recruiter. He knows the game so well that this is somebody that you really love to have on the staff. And when recruiting somebody like Great Osobor, where, yeah, it does feel like Washington is in the lead right now for him. But when you add in some of the guys that you just talked about, plus Tony Bland, it really is an awesome all-around circumstance to do that. And if he, as you said, Lars, if Great Osobor does join this roster, that really does take it to the next level. And now, with that being said, let's talk about some guys that joined some NFL rosters recently. And we'll get there right after the message from our friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like Digging for Treasure or Robot Pachinko Machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. And we also need to give a shout out to our good friends over at Yahoo Finance, because this podcast wouldn't be possible without our friends over at Yahoo Finance, because when it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. That they are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. You can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. So, Lars, we want to have some fun with some of the NFL draft stuff recently, and we thought of a really fun question here, where if you looked at the 2024 NFL Pro Bowl, you looked at the rosters, and you saw one Husky on one of those rosters, and you just look at that and you say, yeah, I'm not surprised this happened. Is there any one guy that stands out to you and you can say, this is the one of the 10 guys that were drafted?
No, but to answer the question, since I'm going to answer the question anyways, it would be as a surprise. I'll say Troy Fautanu, because again,
that's the one I was gonna take. No, this is
And so because as a rookie, it's kind of hard to make the Pro Bowl, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he plays every single game this season for the Steelers, starts potentially at left guard. You know, I left you the other tackle to easily take because that's steal for the Ravens in the second round. A little teaser for maybe who you'll go with. But when you look at what Troy Fautanu could do, he's an immediate plug-and-play guy. It's just a matter of where does he plug in, a left tackle, left guard. I would bet left guard, at least for the Steelers, just off the top of my head. It's just kind of logical seeing where he can fit in there. Now, that also is where he can make an easier time at a Pro Bowl as a rookie. It's a little harder at tackle, especially with, a couple of goats that are still in the NFL doing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a lot harder to make that, especially as a rookie. But like you asked the question, would it surprise me? No, none of these guys would be a surprise. But as a rookie, yeah, I might be a little surprised if the guards are making a Pro Bowl.
So I just, pulling back the curtain here a little bit. We wanted to make sure that these answers were live so we could have a little bit of fun with it. And I thought you were going to take Rome Odunze, the obvious one. So I could be like, Troy Fautanu, bang, here we go. Okay. I have to go with Rome Odunze here. As you referenced Roger Rosengarten, that'd be a really fun one. But Rome Odunze is such a fun answer, because I think that when you look at this Bears offense, there's so much talent on it. There's DeAndre Swift at running back. There's Cole Kmet at tight end. And then this trio of receivers of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome, where they're going to give passing games a lot of fits, especially with the passing defenses, a lot of fits with Caleb Williams back there, where everything he can do with his legs. But I think he really is going to want to try to sit back there. And I don't want to say develop as a passer, because we know he can truly come in and be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. But when we look at just what this offense is going to be, he's going to have so many talented options to throw to that it's just a matter of, okay, let's establish this. And then, I can use my legs when I have to. And I think that DJ Moore is certainly going to be the number one target. Keenan Allen is definitely going to get a ton of targets as well. But when I look at Rome Odunze, this is such a great scenario for him where even though he's a top 10 pick, we look at these two other guys who are established Pro Bowl receivers in the league that defenses might, shift coverages their way at first, leaving Rome one-on-one. And Caleb and Rome have been working out together for a while, that they seem to just already develop this chemistry of, all right, I know where this guy's going to be. I like working with this guy. I think that, they're going to gel very quickly on the field. And if we look up, beginning in November, say, and he's I'm going to be modest here and say top 20 in the league in just receiving yards or yards per catch or something like that, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And really, it's just a credit to general manager Ryan Poles and the team he's put together. But with everything we know about Rome, who he is as a person, who he is as a player, that none of that would surprise me in the least bit.
No, I remember hearing draft night, some of the Chicago media people told Rome what the Bears shooting record is for an individual player.
Yeah,
he's like 5,000 in a career. Not I mean, like in a career, not a season, but like in a career. Yeah. So let me just, I'm glad you made that pick, because again, Rome obviously easiest one to pick, but not so easy. But I am very confident in this pick in terms of what I see Rome being able to do. Before Rome signs his second contract in Chicago, he will have the Bears franchise record for receiving yards.
Ooh, that's a very bold take. I like that one a lot. So I actually have one more that I wanted to throw in here. And it's not because I'm a Patriots fan, but it's because of what he's going to do in that offense. Thank you. But I have to talk about Ja'Lynn Polk here for a minute. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is because he just fits so well in this offense. There were some reports that came out early on Tuesday before we pressed record that Ja'Lynn Polk was not the number one target the Patriots had at receiver at it originally picked 34. They traded back a little bit before picking up Ja'Lynn Polk. That they wanted Xavier Legette from South Carolina. That makes a lot of sense. He ends up going at the end of the first round to the Carolina Panthers. That's a really good pick, but and I don't like using this term because it's certainly not what happened, but the Patriots really just had Ja'Lynn Polk fall in their laps. That's the only way to look at how this happened. And I really love the fit with Drake May. I think that he can play inside and outside a little bit, but he's somebody who can immediately come in and be the top receiver on that team. And for a team that has such a nice, history of wide receivers, if you want to talk about just in recent years of Tom Brady with Wes Welker, Randy Moss, Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, you would just want to talk about all these really good pass catchers that this team has had for so long. I don't think he's going to get to that level, especially not right away, but he's somebody that, if he comes in and just has a really, really solid rookie season, thanks to the strong hands that we saw just from him over his time here at Washington, and just getting to develop with a rookie quarterback in Drake May. And even if he doesn't start Jacoby Brissett, this is a team that has not had a true number one wide receiver in a long time. And I think that Ja'Lynn Polk might not necessarily be viewed as that right away, but he can certainly grow into that role rather quickly with what they're going to ask him to do.
So is there any more player from Washington made in the Patriot way than Ja'Lynn Polk?
No, absolutely not. He's so
perfect. When I heard that pick, I just imagined Bill Belichick making that pick. Like, awesome. I don't have to worry about a diva receiver. I don't have to worry about this being a N'Keal Harry situation. I know that might be PTSD for Patriots fans, but
it is for me.
This is not N'Keal Harry. And by the way, I love N'Keal Harry. So like a great player at ASU back in the day. But Ja'Lynn Polk is not N'Keal Harry. Ja'Lynn Polk is coming as a ready. He seems like a guy when he gets into that building in New England or in Foxborough or wherever it's actually located at this point in time. That he's like a 3-year vet where he's just been there. He's in the building. He takes care of himself from a diet perspective, workout warrior. He's always working out from Texas. So the weather won't be an issue in terms of, I'm the Oregon State game aside. I'm not worried about Ja'Lynn Polk playing in Upper New England in November and December. Will it be great? Maybe a little bit of an adjustment, possibly. But his game won't take an impact. He's not going to all of a sudden, and that's why that's honestly why getting back to our second segment or the first segment to tie all this whole thing together. When you're from Texas and from some of these warm areas, you're also going to play in the NFL in Chicago in December, in New England in January. You're not going to have this warm Buffalo in December and January. You're going to have all these types of cities that you have to go to. You got to be a little bit tough. So Washington's kind of the perfect place to toughen you up a little bit. Where it's partly Scotty, right? Probably cloudy right now and somewhat sunny. But I mean, you got gray, 5 months out of the year. But again, it builds character. And look at what Polk did at the time. Had success in Texas Tech, comes to Washington, obviously has the unfortunate 21 season. And then Galen Moore arrives and Jamarcus Shepard arrives, and the rest is history. And he became the player that we both thought he could be in 21 before the injury, where a guy that can go deep, a guy that can really do it all. And one of the more sure-handed guys, that's why I don't want to keep bringing up the Oregon State game, but that was just such a bizarre game on so many levels. Yet he still is able to come back, make a contribution in the Sugar Bowl, make a contribution in the national championship. And really, if you don't have Jalen Polk when Jalen McMillan went out, I don't know that this team has the success that it does if you have just Rome Odunze. And that is no slight to Rome Odunze. That is no slight whatsoever. But when you would look at that, it would be Rome and Jeremy Bernard and potentially Jack Westover as your tight end, right? So where that those weapons aren't the same as Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, and then Rome Odunze. So I love that pick. And all these guys, really, I don't think there is one that's not going to have success where they were drafted. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but they all seem like really good fits. And I don't want to single anybody else out going the other way with that, because I mean, even Dom fit in DC. So I don't think there's a bad fit all around.
Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the viewers for tuning in. We really do appreciate your constant support. We're going to have so much more fun stuff coming at you over the next couple months, because we got a long time before fall camp kicks off. So make sure you keep it here with us on Locked On Huskies and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating the channel with new content every single day. So make sure you hit that like button on the video. Click that little bell so you never miss when we post a new video. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, leave a comment down below for your audio only. Please leave us a 5-star review, as it all really does help us out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Thursday.